Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward, and I want you to save the date. I want you to go to the movie theaters this upcoming Tuesday. I want you to go see a movie called Heart of a Servant. It's a documentary. It's about Father Edward Flanagan, and he is the founder of Boystown out in Nebraska. And Boystown is something I was familiar with for a little bit, only because I think when I was a kid, like I would go to a thrift store or a rummage sale at the church and always peruse the books. I had a great interest in religion, even from a young age. And so I remember finding a book about Father Flanagan. And now
Yeah.
I've personally not read the book, but it's interesting that in all of these years, having moved from parish to parish and having purged certain things, I've never let go of it, even though I've never read it. And when I watched the film about Father Flanagan, I said, I got to go find that book and see if I still have it. And lo and behold, here it was. So a little bit familiar, always had his name in my head, but it was so great to learn more about him through Heart of a Servant. And so today I'm speaking with the producer and director of the film, Rob Kazmark, and he is from Spirit Juice Studios and does a lot of other media work. So grateful you're taking time just to share a little bit about Father Flanagan and your passion for this project.
Father Edward, thank you so much for having me. That's what a great story. That it's funny how we have things that we keep with us, and sometimes we don't even the fact that you even read the book, but just hung on to it and then found it or pulled it back up after you saw the film. How amazing! I think God's providence is just like, he has these plants of seeds in our life of different things. So that's awesome. And thank you for watching the film too. Grateful to for your time, not only just for that, but for having me on the podcast and getting the word out. I'm very excited and passionate about talking on Father Flanagan and all the great work he did. I think especially being that he's on his way to canonization as an American saint. I think it's really inspiring for a lot of us to see the work he did on this soil, on U.S. soil, and see the impact, and globally. Although he was an Irish immigrant and moved to the United States at a young age, he did a lot of work internationally as well, which is really incredible.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I picked up the book, obviously, back in the day was uh, thinking about priesthood at a young age. Here's the story of an American priest, and probably one of the reasons. Interestingly enough, like in my own life, I have a great devotion to people who are on the way to sainthood. And so it's kind of interesting that he emerges in my life as kind of that's been picking up speed a little bit. Like, I love the story of an Irish Jesuit named Father Willie Doyle. I have a great fondness for Father Lucas Etlin, who had a cause for sainthood, kind of stagnant. And so it was interesting to watch the movie and obviously hearing Father Edward Flanagan referred to as a saintly person. But, being a Father Edward, it was just interesting to hear my name repeated when they didn't use Flanagan. So it was just kind of one of those little novelty things for me.
That's cool. Yeah, and I think, maybe even a special little place God put there, because I think there's certain saints that, what do they say when you're making a confirmation? Like, they always told me, like, you don't pick your confirmation saint, your confirmation saint picks you. And I don't know if that's true, but I like to think it is. I picked Saint Joseph, or rather Saint Joseph picked me, and I find that I have a strong, just like devotion to him and different things in my life, the way it's been. I'm a father now, and there's just a lot of connections to that. And so I think yourself, you saw Father Edward J. Flanagan, on the big screen, you heard your name, and I think there is a connection. And maybe that's God calling you to serve in similar ways, or just live your life in the way he did, in the sense of persevering through hard times, because I think he really did persevere through a lot of hard times. It was nothing short of a challenge for him.
Yeah, when it comes to film, so you tell the story of Father Edward Flanagan in Heart of a Servant. It's going to be on the big screen. It's a Fathom release. I think sometimes these become passion projects. So a few years ago, we have Mark Wahlberg who does Father Stu, and kind of a
Mhm.
passion project for him. Wanted to play Father Stu, wanted to tell his story. Now, Father Stu doesn't have a cause for canonization yet, but it was just a passion project for him. I've had my own personal passion projects, whether it's a book or a documentary, working on it with a different producer. But was this a passion project for you, or was it for someone involved in this whole prospect? Like, how did you choose out of all the people to tell a biopic of through a docudrama, really? Uh, how would you pick Father Flanagan?
So this is actually the story came to us, in the sense that, so spiritual usage, illustrate a little bit earlier, where we create Catholic videos for organizations, and sometimes those are short form content, sometimes that's long form TV shows. And the Father Flanagan leave came to us to say, hey, we want to tell the story of Father Flanagan. And so we approach it like any other project. We have producers, directors, writers all in house, and we create and tell these stories. And so it came to us in that way. But then at a certain point, and it's hard to tell exactly when it was, it really did become a passion project, because we, fell in love with the story of Father Flanagan, who he was, how he served. And strangely, someone just made the connection not that long ago when I was doing some of the press for it. About a year and a half ago, actually maybe 2 years now, we launched a kids YouTube channel called Juicebox to really help teach the faith to kids on YouTube in a fun kind of YouTube way. And someone made the connection. It was like, Father Flanagan, you're kind of doing what the work Father Flanagan did, like serving kids that need,
Hmm.
that don't have the faith, but obviously in a much different and in a modern age. And because I felt the reason I want to do this, I just felt like there's a huge need to plant the seeds of faith in kids at a young age. And Father Flanagan, I mean, his motto was, "There's no bad boy, only bad environments." And with the right environment, a child can flourish and grow. And so, I think anyone that is raising kids, that has kids, that's around kids, you see that. If God forbid you yell and scream at your kids or kids around there, they're gonna kind of wither. But if you build them up and you pray with them and you tell them good stuff, they're gonna grow like and flourish in a good way. And Father Flanagan saw that, and it just inspires me constantly, especially in this day and age.
I think when we learn about the story of someone, whether through a book, through a documentary, through that type of storytelling and history, when we learn their story, maybe there's something that just stands out to us. I know for myself, I recently reread a biography. So I had read the biography maybe 2 or 3 years ago, reread it, and I appreciated a lot more this time certain other aspects just because of things that have gone on in my life since then, and I could relate to this guy and so forth. So I'm just wondering, as you tell the story and really this bio of Father Edward Flanagan, like, what stands out to you the most about his life?
I think two things in particularly. One, he had health issues his entire life. And, I think sometimes whether people are going through health issues or they're walking with someone in their family, or a close friend that's going through health issues, it almost could feel like uh, unjust, right? It's like, why am I getting this health issue? I mean, certainly, some might be um, uh self-inflicted, but for the most part, health stuff, it just kind of, it rains in the just and the unjust. So you take care of your body your whole life, but still get a terminal illness. And so he didn't have a terminal illness, but there was a thought that he might have like a lifelong pneumonia. His health was always a struggle. And so seeing how he kept persevering through that, and didn't there wasn't an excuse. It wasn't like he said, "Oh, well, I don't feel good." So, certainly he had to take his breaks at different times, but he didn't use that excuse to not serve. He still served, and he worked through that. And I think for me that was inspiring, to kind of like to be able to push through, and knowing that this life is short, and we're here to serve God, and we're here to make the biggest impact we can in serving the Lord, whether that's an impact that is seen across the world, or just an impact with our own family. Regardless, I think that's what we're all called to do. And so I think that was just kind of remarkable, that I think about that quite a bit. the other thing is just how much he cared about the boys he took care of, and boys that were under the threat of, going downhill. And I think about how when he was doing, in the height of everything, if there was a child that was, and I say child, like under 18, that was convicted of murder, he would go to the court and plead to take that child under his care and rehabilitate him in Boystown.
Mm.
Because they had no, and these are kids that didn't have parents. Like if parents were there, obviously they would do that. But kids that were orphaned, that were, because he thought, the situation they got themselves in, it wasn't, you know, um, if they had a better surrounding, they wouldn't be doing that. And so he did that like over 100 times. And this is in like the 20s, 30s, 40s, where like, you can't just jump on a quick flight. He's taking a plane, or he's taking a train, not a plane, or taking a bus. And so it was a lot of work. And this was, he also, I'm sure, had a lot going on. So he always made that time. And I just find that really inspiring.
As you created this documentary, filmed it, interviewed all the people, and you had great people that were spokespeople for Father Flanagan, telling his story, from the historian professor that you had to some of the people that like had a life experience with him, that he cared for them. It's beautifully told. So I'm assuming you had to go to Boys Town in Nebraska, that you walked that town or that campus or whatever it is. So what were your impressions when you stepped foot onto the property of Boys Town?
Well, it's interesting to think about Boys Town. And we talk about it in the film, but I think what a lot of people don't know, and I didn't make the connection until getting into the film, is that the reason why Boys Town's called Boys Town, it's an actual town, and he did that because the work he was doing in the late 20s and 30s, he wasn't allowed to do that. There was something in place called the Jim Crow laws that didn't allow him to care for people of different ethnicities, races, religions, all that stuff. So he had to create his own town to keep serving the Lord. So I just find that, like, just the fact that it's its own town, and he created, like, what saint or a person on their way to be a saint had to create their own town to continue their ministry. I just think that's really inspiring. And so walking across that and thinking like, wow, this is something that, had Father Flanagan not existed, this would just probably be part of Omaha suburbs right now, or some
Mm.
part of, and it's like this ground in one way felt very sacred. It felt sacred because it was a spot where I've been to the Holy Land a couple times, and obviously there's not like many things that are different about the Holy Land and the Boys Town, but there is something that where there's just like, you feel like some areas are touched by God, with
Mhm.
just like his grace. And it had that feeling there, and it still does. And you can go to the tomb. I prayed at the tomb many times, and had some pretty powerful, things come out of it. So just extremely special, extremely special.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. I love the witness praying at the tomb. It's something I do. I promote it a lot. Where I live in Wisconsin, there is Venerable Samuel Mazzucchelli. There's Blessed James Miller, just an hour from my home. Venerable Frederick Berga, this missionary bishop, is up in the UP. So there are holy places, holy graves that we can pray at. And actually, I just recently preached on Venerable Samuel Mazzucchelli, and just how when I prayed at his grave a few years ago, like it was a very life-changing experience. Like I felt different after I prayed there. And so maybe that's how you felt as you were there at Father Flanagan's grave. But and I'm sure as you were there, you prayed for your project, prayed for the success, that you would tell his story well. And so there were certain graces that you were praying for.
And praying for the children that I have two boys, and I was praying for them.
Oh,
It was a kind of a bit of a challenging time, and I just felt like there's a lot of graces that were given to me from that. And I think, I would encourage anyone, like, people might say, look, what would Father Flanagan, if he was a saint, what would he be the patron saint of? And I don't know, and I don't know who, I don't have the knowledge to know who's the patron saint of what, but I would say this: if there are children in need, and especially maybe not being cared for, or if people if have their own children that like are not sure how to just like take care of them the best way, the way like God wants them to. I think Father Flanagan can intercede in those situations and offer the care. Because he the way he did it, it seems kind of basic right now in 2024, where it's just like, yeah, of course you would, take care of their physical needs, and for him, give them a place to grow strong, and church to go to. But at the time, that wasn't the standard at all, and he developed that. And so I think like God sees that in the way, and I think where Father Flanagan's intercession could come is like bring the struggles that we have now with children wherever they are, whether they're our own people we know, and offering the grace to intercede and offer what's needed, and getting those kids, because that's what Father Flanagan did. He gave an individualized care to each of those kids that came to Boystown. He would meet with them, see what their interests are, and cater that. And I think that's just so special that doing that in that time.
Yeah, actually, you speaking to that, I'm the pastor of a school, and so of a parish with a school. And so, like, I know some of our youth, some of our students, that they have some, histories that, maybe this one kid, their parents died and they're being raised by a sibling or a different family member, that this person had this happen in their life. And I think about that now, and I'm like, well, I should bring our kids in prayer and ask Father Flanagan to intercede for their needs. So I'm sure maybe one of the hopes for the movie or the documentary, Heart of a Servant, is that it's to raise awareness about who Father Flanagan is, to raise awareness that this is a guy who has a cause for sainthood. So let's ask for miracles. Let's progress this a little bit further along the road. Maybe it's to raise awareness about Boystown, that this place still exists, that they need support and financial assistance from people. What's your biggest hope for the film?
The biggest hope, and this was established by the Father Flanagan League, who really are the ones that they hired us to create this, and we're the driving force. And they believe, what I believe is that Father Flanagan is a saint, or have not seen anything that would say otherwise. And so they want to further his cause for canonization. And one might ask, okay, well, that's great, but why? Because I think we need a saint like Father Flanagan in our time. I think it's not just like someone that we can look to and to be inspired by, but also someone that we can pray for their intercession to help us. Because I think caring for children, especially now, I feel like there's ebbs and flows, and I think right now we're at a time where the care for children is extremely important, that they can grow up to be strong Catholics, good Americans, and resilient. Because if they don't, the future doesn't look quite so good, without that. And I think if you can develop them at a young age, and I think Father Flanagan's intercession in that, I think is just crucial right now.
What did it take for you to get a documentary about a Catholic priest, to get it on the big screen through Fathom events? So Fathom is renting out, X number of theaters throughout the country. There's one showing, and they're never like the convenient times. It's like 7 o'clock on a Tuesday in the middle of the week, on October 8th. But there's the hope maybe that if there's a great response, it could be extended, that this story could be on the screens. I was on Box Office Mojo the other day, and I saw that your film was one of the upcoming releases. They had it there slated there. So that was cool to see.
That's
So,
amazing.
so what did it take for you to make this happen?
Well, it took, they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so there was like 5 degrees of separation from, the people you need to know, or for I guess from anyone in the world, right? The 5 degrees. And so, I knew someone who knew someone that could kind of help me. And so it was a lot of conversations. Getting Jonathan Rumi and getting the Fathom kind of worked really together. The same Lisa, who's like crucial in that connection, really helped facilitate that. And so having Jonathan name on there, and it's not uncommon when you're making a documentary to have a celebrity narrator. It helps bring attention to something that most people may not be aware of, or have a desire, but then you have that audience. So that was a really big draw to help get into the doors for Fathom to do this release. And you're right, if it does do well, they can add the more dates, more times, But because it's, on a person that, maybe a lot of people might not be familiar with as much, so we've been doing a lot of promotion and marketing to get that out there. And then once people do see it, then yeah, they could add some more times. And I think for me, it's like, I often wonder, why aren't there more Catholic films in theaters, and the thing is, like, Hollywood's, they're motivated by money, there's nothing more than that. So if things do well and people support Catholic films like this one or other Catholic films, then there'll be more doors open. So I think it's important for people not just to see this, because obviously selfishly I want them to see it. I want them to know about Father Flanagan, but for the cultural movement, if you want to see more Catholic films, support this one, support any Catholic film, not just this one that goes to theaters. And buy a ticket for a couple of tickets, your friends, even if you end up going by yourself, it just helps move the cause along to get more things like this out there.
I know sometimes I've promoted these movies in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and like 5 people that I know will go and they'll be like, we are the only 5 people in the theater, But then there will be people out there in Omaha, Nebraska. They're going to be filling the theaters because this is a hometown hero. This is a story that people want to see out there. So, are there plans for future distribution from the Father Flanagan Guild afterwards? Do they think they'll bring it to streaming or something like that?
Absolutely. We're gonna do some international, because there's been Father Flanagan's work wasn't just in the United States. He went to Japan, Austria, Germany, many different countries that he had not just went to, but had a strong impact on the basis for childcare. So we'll be doing an international release, and then also streaming. Part of the streaming will depend on how well it does at the box office. And so, it could make or break the difference of going on a streaming platform that might be not as popular, versus if it has a strong box office, then some of the major streaming platforms will really want to have it there, which would get an even wider, release. And, I think the theatrical, it gets a lot of, like, it's the glitz and glamour. Going to the movie theater is amazing. But like most of us, I watch, I go to the movies, maybe once or twice a month, if that, but I'm watching stuff streaming all the time. And so if you can get on a major streaming platform, then I think it could really get even more awareness. So, but that only happens if we can get the box office numbers up.
Yeah, that's great. I hope you do. I hope that happens. And yeah, hopefully America, Catholics, and I think it's a story that could be enjoyed by non-Catholics too. So hopefully everybody will take notice. So the documentary Heart of a Servant, the story of Father Edward J. Flanagan, it's coming to a theater through Fathom October 8th. Check local listings. It's a Tuesday. Any place you want to direct people? Is there a website for the film, or how can they learn more about the work Spiritus is doing?
Yeah, we have a website for the film. It's fatherflanaganfilm.com. And if you want to keep up on just Spiritus, you can just Google Spiritus. All of our stuff will pop up, spiritus.com. We've been putting out a lot of interesting content on Father Flanagan on its social. So I would encourage anyone to jump over on Instagram or on our YouTube channel. Just a small plug for Juice Box, which is our Catholic kids show. It's actually the largest Catholic kids show on YouTube right now. So if you have a passion for caring for young children like I do, and teaching the faith, it's a great way to check that out.
Yeah, our schools should be circulating it. We should send the links out. So that's great. Well, thanks so much, Rob, for making this movie. God calls. You said yes, you cooperated, and now the project is ready to hit the screen and to share the story of this someday saint. And hopefully we'll call him a saint real soon. So thanks so much, Rob, for your time today.
Thank you, Father Edward. I really appreciate it. Now I can't not think of Father Edward J. Flanagan when I say Father Edward. So thanks for having me.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FrEdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.